There comes a moment in life when your silence becomes heavier than your words. Your distance becomes more powerful than your nearness, and your absence becomes a message no one can ignore. People underestimate you when you are always available. They overlook you when you give too much. They forget your value when you stay where you are not respected, but the day you choose to step back, the day you choose to walk away, the day you choose yourself over their comfort, that is the day your absence speaks louder than your presence ever could. This speech is about understanding the power of stepping away, not out of weakness, but out of strength. When you give people constant access to your presence, they begin to believe that your energy is endless and your availability is automatic. It isn't because they're always ungrateful. It's simply human nature to grow accustomed to what is consistently there. When you show up every time, when you answer immediately, when you fix every problem, when you stand by someone through every storm, they unconsciously form the belief that you will always be there no matter what. Over time, your presence becomes part of the background of their life, like air, necessary but rarely noticed. You could be the one holding the entire situation together, yet because you never step back, people never truly understand the strength you carry or the void you fill. But absence is a powerful teacher. The moment you remove yourself, whether emotionally, physically, or mentally, the world around you has to recalibrate. Suddenly, the support they assumed would always be there is gone. The comfort they took for granted stops flowing. The consistency they depended on no longer cushions their mistakes. And in that silence, in that space you leave behind, your value becomes unmistakable. People start to notice the conversations you used to initiate, the encouragement you used to give, the problems you used to solve before they even became problems. They begin to understand the weight you carried without being asked and the responsibility you never complained about. Sometimes words fail to express what your presence truly meant. You could explain it 100 times. You could tell them you're tired. You could say you feel unappreciated, but nothing changes. People hear your words, but they don't feel the truth behind them. But your absence, they feel that immediately. When you step away, it forces everything and everyone to reorganize. It forces people to confront the reality that you were not ordinary. You were the foundation. You were the glue that held things together, the piece that softened the chaos, the strength that made everything seem easier than it actually was. Absence has a way of presenting your value without you having to justify it. It shows people what life looks like without your support. It creates contrast. And in that contrast, your worth becomes crystal clear. It isn't about punishing anyone or proving a point out of ego. It's about understanding that sometimes the only way to teach people the value of your energy is to stop giving it away so freely. When your presence is always available, it becomes invisible. When your presence disappears, your impact becomes undeniable. Imagine a woman who always checked on everyone in her family, calling, reminding, encouraging, solving conflicts before they escalated. She was the emotional center, the listener, the mediator, the comfort. For years, everyone assumed she was just strong and didn't need anything in return. Even when she told them she was tired, they brushed it off. One day she decided she needed to step back for her own peace. She stopped calling first. She stopped reminding people of their responsibilities. She stopped carrying the emotional weight for everyone else. At first, no one noticed, but slowly the cracks began to show. Appointments were missed, arguments dragged on because no one stepped in. The warmth in the family gatherings felt different. People started saying things don't feel the same. It wasn't anything dramatic. It was simply the quiet realization that she had been doing far more than anyone realized. Her absence spoke the truth. Her presence had been masking. She was the one holding everything together. That is the power of absence. It reveals what your presence made look effortless. It forces people to recognize your influence, your strength, and your contribution. Not when you are there, but when you finally decide to step away. Sometimes the greatest message you will ever deliver is not spoken with your voice, but with your silence. When you create a little distance between yourself and the world around you, something powerful begins to happen. People reveal their truth. The ones who value you don't wait for your presence to activate their effort. They meet you in the space you create. They reach out, they check in, they show up. And the ones who were only around for convenience, comfort, or advantage quietly fade away. Distance becomes a filter that needs no explanation. You don't have to confront. anyone. You don't have to argue. You don't have to announce you're stepping back. Just a slight pullback is enough to expose who was truly connected to you and who was simply connected to what you provided. When you stop being the first to call, you see who calls. When you stop offering help automatically, you notice who helps without being asked. When you stop giving emotionally, financially, or mentally, you discover who values you beyond the benefits. This isn't about playing games. It's about clarity. People can pretend when you're constantly available, but when you take a step back, the mask slips. You begin to see who loved you for you and who loved the access, the attention, or the support you gave them. Distance reveals who respects the relationship. If someone truly cares, they won't let silence stay silent for long. They will bridge the gap. They will feel your absence because your presence mattered to them. They won't assume you'll always come back. They'll make sure you know that you are missed, appreciated, and wanted. But someone who never valued you in the first place won't feel that shift. They'll let days, weeks, even months pass without wondering where you went or why you disappeared, because they were never invested in you. They were invested in what came from you. This is how distance quietly cleans your circle. You don't have to fight to prove your worth. You don't have to chase after people who don't reciprocate. You don't have to beg for loyalty, attention, or respect. Distance does the work for you by creating a natural separation between those who hold your presence with gratitude and those who only consume it. It's a silent sorting system. Those who care step closer, those who never did step back without being pushed. And here's the truth, distance helps you see what presence may have blinded you to. When you're constantly giving, constantly showing up, constantly being a bigger person, you don't always notice that you are carrying the relationship alone. You don't see the imbalance because you're in motion. But the moment you stop, the moment you pause, the moment you rest, a new reality appears. Distance shows you whether your connections are mutual or one-sided, whether your relationships are stable or only standing because you hold them up. A simple example captures this perfectly. There was a man who always checked on his friends daily, sending messages, calling, planning get-togethers, making sure everyone felt connected. He noticed he was always the one initiating every conversation. Feeling drained, he decided to take a step back for a week. No messages, no calls, just silence. By the end of the first day, no one reached out. By the third day, still nothing. A whole week passed. Ed and not a single friend contacted him. Finally, one person sent a message, "Bro, you good? Haven't heard from you in days." That one message told him everything he needed to know. Out of the entire group, only one person truly valued him beyond what he brought to the group. The rest were only present because he kept the connection alive. His distance revealed their true positions. That's the power of stepping back. It shows you who moves forward. It teaches you not to invest your heart where there is no return. And most importantly, it reminds you that real connections never fear distance. They overcome it. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for yourself is step back. Not out of anger, not out of pride, but out of deep self-respect. There comes a point when you realize that constantly explaining yourself, constantly repeating your worth, constantly trying to prove that your intentions are pure or your heart is genuine, becomes a cycle that drains your spirit. When a space no longer appreciates your effort, when a relationship no longer protects your peace, when an environment no longer supports your growth, staying there becomes a form of self-betrayal. Absence, then, becomes an act of honoring yourself. It is choosing to value your own emotional and mental health more than someone else's comfort. It is choosing to walk away from anything that forces you to shrink just to fit in. Self-respect is not loud. It doesn't argue. It doesn't beg. It doesn't announce its arrival. It simply decides. It decides that your peace matters more than winning the argument. It decides that your well-being matters more than being understood. It decides that your growth matters more than someone's opinion of you. Absence becomes the quiet declaration that you refuse to stay where you are minimized, dismissed, or taken for granted. It sends a message without speaking. I value myself enough to leave. There are times when your presence becomes a signal that you tolerate things you truly don't deserve. People assume you're fine because you're still there. They assume you're okay because you haven't said otherwise. But your heart knows the truth. You can feel when an environment is draining you. You can feel when a relationship is dimming your light. You can feel when you're giving more than you're receiving. Walking away does not make you weak. It makes you wise enough to know you deserve better and brave enough to go find it. Choosing absence isn't about rejecting people. It's about choosing yourself. It is a decision to protect your energy from those who misuse it, your kindness from those who abuse it, and your love from those who refuse to appreciate it. When you decide to step back, you give yourself the space to breathe again. You give your heart room to heal. You give your mind room to grow. You begin to see yourself with clarity. You begin to understand what you truly need. And most importantly, you begin to rebuild the strength that constant giving had drained from you. Absence also creates boundaries that words often fail to enforce. You can tell someone 100 times that something hurts you, but your presence still gives them permission to continue. When you walk away, the message becomes undeniable. They can no longer ignore your pain because your distance speaks for it. They can no longer overlook your needs because your silence highlights what they refuse to hear. Your absence is the ultimate line in the sand. It is the moment you choose your dignity over the cycle that kept diminishing it. Imagine a man who always stood by his friends, always helping, always listening, always giving, even when he was exhausted. He was the one everyone called at midnight, the one who lent money he couldn't spare, the one who gave Advic. He barely had the energy to follow himself. Over time, his friends stopped seeing his effort. They only saw his availability. One day, after feeling completely drained, he decided to step back. No announcements, no drama. He simply stopped picking up every call, stopped solving every problem, stopped carrying emotional burdens that weren't his. At first, people were confused. Then they began to feel the void. The convenience he once offered disappeared. Suddenly, they realized he wasn't just a friend, he was the foundation of the group. His absence forced him to confront how much they had relied on him without giving back. It wasn't an act of revenge, it was an act of self-respect. And in that space he created, he finally found peace and balance. That is the power of absence as self-respect. It is the moment you choose yourself, protect yourself, and elevate yourself, not by fighting, but by stepping away from anything that doesn't honor your worth. When you choose to step back from people, places, or situations that drain you, you are not creating emptiness. You are creating space. And space is where growth happens. Many people think that absence is simply distance, but in reality, absence is an opportunity. When you remove yourself from the noise, from the expectations, from the constant demands on your energy, your mind finally has room to breathe. You begin to see life with new clarity because you are no longer surrounded by the things that kept you emotionally crowded. Growth needs silence. Growth needs stillness. Growth needs separation. And often, the most powerful version of you is born in the moments when you are unseen. When you're constantly around the same people or routines, it becomes easy to lose yourself. Their opinions become your inner voice. Their doubts become your ceiling, and their expectations shape your choices. But the moment you distance yourself, even briefly, you start hearing your own soul again. You remember what you want, not what they expect. You reconnect with your own dreams instead of feeding theirs. This is why absence is not running away. It is realignment. It is stepping away from unhealthy attachments so you can step into a clearer, stronger identity. Absence also reveals what truly matters to you. When you detach from situations that exhaust you, you notice where your heart naturally drifts. You notice which dreams still whisper to you. You notice which goals still keep you up at night without the constant noise of other people's needs. You begin to understand your own needs. You start to grow into a self that isn't shaped by pressure or obligation, but by purpose. And purpose only reveals itself when you give it space to speak. Many people fear stepping away because they think they will lose people, opportunities, or relationships. But the truth is, anything that falls apart when you choose yourself was never meant to grow with you. Real growth requires pruning. It requires letting go of the branches that pull you downward so the roots can strengthen and the tree can rise higher. Absence is not just silence, it is pruning. And pruning always leads to new life. One of the deepest benefits of absence is that it teaches you independence. When you step away from people you relied on or from patterns you were stuck in, you discover strengths you didn't know you had. You learn how capable you are. You find resilience you didn't notice before because you were too busy supporting everyone else. Distance gives you confidence because it forces you to listen to your own guidance instead of leaning on external voices. A short example illustrates this clearly. There was a young man who spent years in the same group of friends. They weren't bad people, but they were comfortable, too comfortable. They laughed together, hung out every day, and lived in routine. He always felt he had a bigger dream, but whenever he expressed it, they told him, "Relax. Why think so big? Just stay with us. This is enough." Deep down, he felt stuck, but because he was always present, he couldn't see a way out. One day, he decided to distance himself for a while, just to think, just to breathe. At first, it felt strange, but slowly the space changed him. He started reading more. He started working on his goals. He applied for an opportunity he always hesitated to try for. Within months, he achieved something his old circle never believed was possible. His absence gave him the clarity and courage his presence never allowed. That is the power of stepping back. Absence is not a weakness, it is a strategy. When you step away from the noise, you step toward your evolution. When you create space, you create growth. And sometimes the greatest version of you can only emerge when you finally decide to remove yourself from what was holding you still. Your value often becomes the clearest when you're no longer standing in the room, no longer offering your energy, no longer giving the parts of yourself that others assume would always be available. Presence is powerful, but it can also hide the true weight of your contribution. When people see you every day, when they benefit from your strength constantly, when they rely on your support without thinking, they begin to believe that what you give is effortless. They think the comfort you provide is natural, not chosen. They assume your help is automatic, not intentional. But the moment you step away, the moment you let the silence speak, the moment your voice is no longer the one guiding, encouraging, steadying, everything shifts. People suddenly start to understand what you used to hold together. They feel the gap you filled. They recognize he balance you brought. Your absence magnifies your value in a way your presence never could. Absence has a unique kind of echo. It lingers. It forces the world to replay your impact. The things you did so quietly, so consistently start to stand out. People notice the tasks that no longer get done, the peace that no longer exists, the stability that suddenly feels uncertain. The truth is, your presence sometimes disguises your power because you make things look too easy. You carry responsibilities without announcing them. You solve problems without asking for praise. You bring calm without drawing attention to your efforts. But when you remove yourself, the world has to face what you were truly responsible for. And your absence doesn't only reveal your value to others, it reveals it to you. When you step back, you get to see which relationships were built on real appreciation and which ones were built on convenience. You get to see who reaches out, who checks in, who notices that something important is missing. Your absence exposes truth. It shows you where you were giving more than you were receiving. It shows you where you were carrying more weight than everyone else combined. It shows you where your presence was being used, not honored. There's also a spiritual dimension to absence. When you step away from the wrong people, wrong environments, wrong circles, you make room for the right things to enter your life. Sometimes your destiny is delayed because you're pouring your strength into places that cannot grow you. Your presence is being wasted where your value is not understood. But when you decide to walk away, when you choose peace over pressure, when you choose growth over repetition, you step into alignment with something bigger. Your absence from the wrong situation becomes the doorway to the right opportunity. Imagine a man who worked in a small team, but he was the one solving every issue. Whenever a crisis appeared, he fixed it. When someone made a mistake, he covered it quietly. The team became so used to his presence that they stopped appreciating it. They assumed his skills were just a normal part of the environment. They didn't realize he was the one keeping everything together. One day, he decided to take a week off to rest. No emergencies, no deadlines, just time away. Within days, the team fell apart. Projects got delayed, miscommunication spread, problems stacked up. People started saying, "We didn't know how much he actually did." His absence exposed the truth his presence had been hiding. He was the backbone. He was the one keeping the system alive. His value only became undeniable when he was no longer there. That is the nature of true worth. It echoes. It echoes in the silence you leave behind. It echoes in the spaces you once filled. It echoes in the lessons people learn once they lose the comfort of having you around. Sometimes the world cannot see your value while you are giving it. But the moment you pull back, the moment you choose yourself, the moment you step away, your impact becomes impossible to ignore. And often that echo is the beginning of your greatest elevation. Remember this, your presence is a gift, but your absence is a lesson. Never be afraid to remove yourself from places where you're not respected, appreciated, or valued. Your energy is rare. Your heart is pure. Your time is sacred. Let your absence do the talking when your presence is no longer understood. When you return, if you choose to return as someone stronger, wiser, and untouchable. Because sometimes the loudest thing you can ever say is nothing at all.